Right, good evening. This is the Tuesday, September 19th, 2023 regular meeting of the Flemington Borough Planning Board. This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Both adequate and electronic notice of this meeting has been provided by way of publication in the 189th Democrat Courier News newspapers on or about January 18th or 19th, 2023. In addition, notice of the meeting was posted on the door of the Borough of Flemington Municipal Building here at 38 Park Avenue and any handicapped accessible entrances thereto, posted on the municipal website, provided to the municipal clerk, and distributed to all persons if any are requesting copies of the same. This meeting is being recorded with both audio and video and may be rebroadcast. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Let's everyone please rise as you are able to flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Carroll. Here. Councilwoman Engelhardt. Here. Mr. Campion.
Here.
Mr. Dashna.
Here.
Mr. Levitt.
Here.
Mr. Cook and Ms. Giffen and Mr. Eckel are all excused. Ms. Weitzman.
Here.
Mr. Hill.
Here.
We are waiting for Mr. Zanino. It is not me. Go.
He's here. You mouthed it, but we didn't hear it, Dennis.
Hear me?
Now we go. There we go.
Here. And we have Mr. Hill, present for Mr. Clerico, Ms. McManus. Here. Mr. Troutman,
Here.
and we do have Mr. Klein, Clement Klein.
Hello.
You can speak here later.
Excellent. Thank you all. Item number one on the agenda, as always, is a period for public comments for items not routinely coming forward. Any members of the public wishing to speak, please raise your real or virtual hand. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to item two, mayor comments.
We flip over to attendees.
I'm looking at it.
Oh, you can see it on your.
Sorry, I could.
Sorry.
The manager report is that the borough got control back for our YouTube channel. Our clerk is diligently posting the minutes of the council, and I believe our CFO was given direction to give the clerk of the secretary of the planning board the password information as well. He hasn't done it yet, but I'm sure he will to get the planning board YouTube's up as well. So
When you get that, there was one meeting where I forgot to hit pause during an executive session. So we need to make sure that gets clipped before it gets posted.
which is why you need to be in YouTube on it.
Thank you.
Yes. We might have to
Learn how.
learn how.
Well, it really just clip the end of the meeting because there was no business after. We will just talk to the lawyer, but. All right, thank you, Mayor. Item three, council comments.
Since we didn't have a council meeting between our last meeting, so don't have any report except maybe New Year and October. This is fast later this week. We're all of our Jewish friends.
Thank you. Item four, HPC comments, Dennis.
HPC meetings tomorrow, so no comment this time.
That's fine. This is what happens when we have back-to-back meetings. Item five is approval of the minutes from the September 12th, 2023 regular meeting. Minutes were circulated by email. To get a motion on the minutes. So, Eileen, you pick. Somebody knows will be second. Any clarification or corrections for the minutes?
Mayor Carroll.
Yes.
Mr. Levitt.
Yes.
Councilwoman Engelhardt.
Yes.
Mr. Campion.
Abstain.
Mr. Dashna.
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Mr. Show.
Said yes.
Sorry, I'm not sure why I'm delayed.
It's the south side of town. It's bad Wi-Fi. All right, item six on our agenda this evening is the public hearing for Flemington Realty Partners LLC application 2023-04 Block 39, Lot 6, 78 Church Street. This is a minor site plan application. So if council could come up over here, I'm going to promote you to panelist there. You can just click on yes and turn on the camera, but don't worry about unmuting the microphone there. We'll keep up.
Okay.
Just turn the camera.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. Can everyone hear me? My name is Danielle Kenback. I'm an attorney at Crown and Bell. I represent the applicant Flemington Realty Partners 2 LLC. The application before you tonight is for a minor site plan approval to convert a former pharmacy store with drive-through to a bank with 2 drive-up ATM lanes and an office to be used for financial training. The property that is subject to the application is located at 78 Church Street and it's designated as block 39, lot 6 on the town tax map. The site is one of 3 commercial condo units on the property which share common drive aisles and open space facilities. It's approximately 3.41 acres in total and it's located in the HR Highway Retail District where the proposed bank and financial office is a permitted use. The applicant does not believe any variances or waivers are required. And the board, but we did provide public notice of the application to put the public and the adjoining property owners on notice that there is an application. And in case any variance or waiver did arise during the meeting. With me tonight to provide testimony in support of the application, I have Mr. Matthew Seckler, our professional civil engineer, traffic engineer, and professional planner. So I'd like to have him sworn in and then qualified.
If you want to come up.
Okay, so I think, can you just verify for the board that the notices, to the extent necessary, were provided to the board and they are in order of publication?
Yes, it will.
Board does have jurisdiction with regards to the matter. And Mr. Secretary, Commissioner, yeah, I'm sure the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but.
Yes, I do.
Mr. Seckler, can you briefly describe your educational and professional background for the board?
Certainly. My name is Matthew Seckler. That's Seckler. With Stonefield Engineering Design. Address is 92 Park Avenue in Rutherford, New Jersey. I'm a licensed professional engineer, professional planner in the state. Also recognized professional traffic operations engineer by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. Been practicing in the field for over 15 years. Accepted for over 100 boards in the state of New Jersey in engineering or planning over my 15 years.
And your license is in good standing?
Yes, they are.
Sorry, I missed that because we were finding out about a member who's not going to be here. Planning qualification?
Yeah, I have a master's in city and regional planning from Rutgers University. Also the Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Union College. I have a licensed planner in the state.
You're an AICP, PP.
Just a PP, not an ASCP.
Good enough. Any objections?
And just for the record, you're being qualified as an engineer, planner, and traffic engineer,
As much as traffic may be necessary in this application.
and you've been qualified as an expert in traffic engineering as well.
Yes.
So without objection,
I do have some exhibits. I have my flash drive. Do you also want to put hard copies up?
so it's much easier if you just do the electronic version.
Okay.
You should be able to share screen there because that way our remote participants get to see it.
Certainly.
And the screen is usually adequate for members of the public to see.
Yes. I also have some 1x17s as it may be relevant as we go through. So
That's perfectly fine. So let's make sure we mark everything that's on it.
So while he's getting that up, why don't we mark the planning board exhibits? We'll mark as PB1, the report of the board's planner, PB2, the report from the environmental commission, and PB3, the report of the board's engineer. Yes.
There were a few
Revised.
review letters. Could we just note the date for the planner and engineering review?
Correct. So the planner's letter is dated, it's revised through September 15, 2023. The environmental commission is dated August 21st, 2023. And Ian, do you have the date of
September 13th.
just opening up some files and then I'll
That's
share
no
my screen.
problem.
I got everything every day. Okay, so before the board is an aerial exhibit. It is prepared by Stonefield Engineering Design. He prepared is. It's September 18, 2023. It shows a Google image of the subject site, which as referenced earlier is block 39, lot 6.
Okay, so just mix up,
Yeah.
we'll mark that as A1.
Yes.
Aerial exhibit, Google image of the subject property dated September 18, 2022.
Isn't A1 all the
The
applications?
affidavit.
I'm sorry, yes, you're absolutely right.
The documents.
A1, the application and supporting documentation. A2 will be the notice and publication, and A3 will be the Google image of the subject property, noted as aerial exhibit prepared by Stonefield Engineering dated September 18.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As outlined in black on the Google image is the subject property. It's located in the northwest corner of Route 31 and Church Street. As was alluded to, the property is made up of 3 condo units. The relevant one for this application is the easternmost one, which is the former Rite Aid. I think it was actually Eckerd when it was originally approved, was converted to a Rite Aid, and sits on the easterly portion of the property. Property has access to Route 31 and access to Church Street. Also has that cross-access aisle to the Spice Factory property just to the west, which I believe is lot 8 along Church Street as well. There are 3 uses on the subject property today. As I referenced, the vacant Rite Aid building. You have the American Tire building, which looks horizontal on A3, as well as the Wells Fargo Bank, which is located to the west of the subject building that we're speaking about tonight. The property is located in the HR zone, and as was mentioned by council, all of the previous uses, in addition to the proposed uses, are permitted uses within the HR zone. What we are proposing is to take the 10,908 square foot Rite Aid and convert that building to 2 uses. One being a bank, which would be 5,385 square feet, which would be generally along the southerly side of the building, and a training office, financial office, that would be 5,963 square feet, primarily on the northerly side of the building. In addition to that, the 2 drive-through pharmacy lanes that existed along the northwest corner of the Rite Aid will be converted to drive-through ATM units. So those would be 2 drive-through ATMs in place of the 2 drive-through pharmacy pieces, and there still will remain a bypass lane to the westerly side of that drive-through area. I'll now pull up. Now, the plans that I'm going to be pulling up are more recently revised than the last plan that was submitted to the municipality, because we've tried to listen to some of the comments either raised at the completeness hearing and also working with some of your professionals to try to improve the application and get ahead of some potential comments. So I do have 11 by 17s, and I can explain how they differ from the originally submitted set. This is dated September 18, 2023, and I'd be happy to hand out copies.
So these were documents that were prepared in response to the review letters of the board.
Yes.
And you were submitted to Mr. Clerico's office and to Ms. McManus ahead of the hearing.
When were they submitted to the board?
Just now. They're
Mark A4. We're gonna mark this as exhibit A4, which is an exhibit reflecting amendments in response to the board engineers and planners letters, and assuming you're going to testify as to exactly what those proposed revisions.
absolutely.
You know, I'm sorry, just for the record, I think that these plans were submitted in response to Mr. Clerico's letter.
Yes.
Um,
Not to yours.
okay, thank you.
consists of 5 sheets. I'll again briefly describe the site plan as well as the minor revisions that were made to enhance this plan. Again, as you see on the initial sheet, which is sheet C1, is the site plan. It shows the dividing line between, zoom in, the dividing line between the, slow here,
While you're
between,
doing that, can we just reference, the latest revision date on this, looks like September 18th?
correct. It shows the outline of what will be the bank portion of the building, which again is the southerly portion of the building. It does have, and I could show you some interior floor plans that we've developed, does have a aisle that interior to the building that allows it to service the ATMs that will be located again on that north west corner of the building, and also the financial training offices. Changes to the plan include, since the last time this board has seen it, and I'll go to the third sheet, is additional landscaping that was added to the plan. The landscaping includes a total of more than 40 hollies that were added to the plan within this condo unit, as well as 15 other low-lying shrubs around the area. Again, in this PDF, it actually fairly stands out. The black images are the additional landscaping that was added to this site plan to help increase the vegetation on the property. But we'd be happy to work with the board and the board's professionals in locating any additional landscaping that they deem necessary. Again, we're working within this condo unit and not necessarily the entire property itself. So we've again tried to enhance as best we can within the areas of the condo unit, the landscaping. Some other changes to the plan, and I'll go back to the first sheet, include, and this was based on consulting with Van Cleef Engineering and Mr. Clerico and his office, is that we've added additional ADA space located near the entrance to the training office and financial office, as there are now 2 uses within the building, each of which would need at least 1 ADA space provided. So we've added an additional ADA space, again, to the northerly side of the building, which provide access to a door that we've now showing on the site plan to the training office portion of the property. This does reduce the overall parking on the property from 109 spaces to 108 spaces. That said, we are still compliant with the ordinance. We are required to have 80 spaces for the entire property itself. This condo unit requires 39, and we have 60 within this condo unit. So the condo unit is compliant. The overall lot is still compliant as it relates to parking, with the reduction of 1 parking space because we had to add the required hatch next to the ADA space. Also included within this set of plans on the 4th sheet is an updated lighting plan. Because we are adding an ATM, the state of New Jersey has statutes that relate to having ATMs outside to ensure proper safety. So there are certain lighting levels that are required around ATM units. So there will need to be an upgrade to lighting, and we're showing specifically along the westerly side of the building where the drive-through ATM is located, what lighting we are proposing to add and what the foot candles would be in this area. Again, we'll be happy to work with your professionals in tweaking the lighting as long as it complies with the state statute requirements for ADA lighting. We are also in agreement, I believe there are some comments within some of the board professional letters, that if the remaining lights within this condo unit require upgrades, LED fixtures, cleaning out old fixtures, we'd be happy to do that and replace any and all of the light fixtures within this property condo unit itself. So we are in full agreement with that. We want to show for state statute reasons what the lighting would be in the area of the ATM. Again, all this lighting is located on the westerly side of the building, nowhere near Route 31 or any type of residential properties. In terms of the actual units themselves, the bank and the training center will be expected to be open Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 6 p.m., Saturdays from 8:30 to 3 p.m. That would be the buildings themselves. The ATM would be a 24-hour ATM. It will be used at any point by the public. In terms of the max shift within the bank would likely be 7 employees at any one time. The training may range between 12 and 15 during their busiest times when they're at their maximum training levels. Overall on the site, we'd expect there to be 8 to 14 full-time employees 5 to 10 kind of part-time employees working on the site. But again, at peak, it would be 7 in the bank and 12 to 15 in the training area. Some other changes that are being made to the plan relate to the rear of the building. Rear of the building near the loading area. There is a overhead door, kind of like a roll-up door. We'll be removing that. There's no need to have one for this use. So we are proposing to remove that overhead door, and again, that's located in the northwest corner of the building near the loading area. In addition to that, we are looking in terms of when we walk through some of the floor plans and the facade of the building, what changes we're looking to make, and again, it's pretty minimal. Interior to the building, this is a floor plan. Let me make sure. By the Dietz Partnership. It is dated, I got to zoom in.
And this was submitted as part of the application.
I don't know if this was a revision beyond what was previously submitted.
So why don't we mark it just
Yeah.
like for,
It's dated August 21st, 2023 by the Dietz Partnership, and it's sheet A1. I do have a handout for this as well if the board wishes to see it.
I think this was part of the original.
Okay.
submission.
mark it as a project in case, with the revision date, August 2nd, 2023, and it's sheet A1.
So the left side of the plan shows the bank tenant, which again, typical to most banks you'd see here. They have a mix of kind of private offices for financial kind of consulting and transactions, a general lobby area with some couches for waiting. It does have the counter facilities, back of house, back offices and conference rooms. That's all located in the left side of the image. The right side of the image is the training space, which includes 5 kind of breakout offices, a large training room in the center, along with a break room, which you'd have, a small kitchenette, as well as the bathroom located in the tenant B space, which is the training area. They would have their storefront door, their access door in the location you saw near the ADA space on the site plan itself. Lastly, I will show related to signage as part of this project. As part of this project, we are not seeking to increase the amount of signage on the property compared to what's been out there previously. So we are looking to basically reface any of and all of the signs that previously stated Rite Aid out there. So I'll kind of walk you through that. I do need to share my screen again. This is titled Signage Exhibit, again prepared by Stonefield Engineering Design. It is dated September 18th, 2023. This was not previously submitted.
This is the 6th,
Yes.
so that was September 18th, prepared by your office?
Yes. And it shows the signs, and again, I could zoom in on this since we're sharing screens here. That would be refaced and would be reused for the proposed bank. It includes on the top left corner, which is called freestanding sign number 1, Route 31. A former Rite Aid sign, we would reface that same sign, so it'd be the same dimensions as previously approved for the bank. Going to wall sign area 1. Again, this is where it used to say Rite Aid on the Route 31 facade. Again, we would propose in the same square footage bank sign. Going down to the bottom left, this is the Church Street facade. There used to be a sign located kind of within the arch of the facade here. We would propose again a bank sign in that location, as well as there's a freestanding sign along Church Street, kind of on the Spice Factory, between our driveway and the Spice Factory driveway. We would look to reface that sign with the bank's logo again within the same dimensions that was previously approved. We would also look to reutilize, I think there's a number of directional signs that said like drive-through pharmacy out on the site. We would obviously get rid of the pharmacy aspect, but talk about drive-through ATM and reface those signs as well. So that would be the proposal as it relates to signage. Again, we're looking to maintain compliance with all of the existing signs that are out there. And lastly, as it relates to the facade, and again, this is a rough image, and this is called, there's actually no date or name on this. It just says exterior and it says FC 1.0. So I guess I could put today's date on it. just for the sake of the record.
And this is gonna be A7.
Yep.
Again, that was prepared by your office.
No, this was not prepared by my office. I think this was prepared by some leasing individual.
Okay, under your directions, at least can we just get a little more information so we know exactly?
This was a design that we received from the architect as it relates to what they would look to be putting in place and changing the facade for this building.
So this is a depiction of what was previously on this site or another site?
This was previously on this site. This is what the Rite Aid building looked like, and we are, again, although I don't know if this is relevant to a minor site plan, we just want to show what the intentions are for the facade, since it was well suited for a Rite Aid, but not necessarily for a bank.
We don't know when this photograph was taken.
I do know this photograph was taken while Rite Aid was in business, so I would say it probably dates back to at least 3 years in the past.
Do we have a resolution outlining the signage that was previously approved? You know, if it happens to be that.
Yes, I believe there is. They were granted a few sign variances. So,
It was approved before and was.
we'll comply with what was previously approved and what's permitted by the ordinance.
Because they may not be one and the same. thing,
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
the issue.
I'm not clear on whether or not you're proposing compliance signs or replacement signs. And that may be one and the same in some aspects, but there may be differences.
So I guess we would say we would provide replacement signs, assuming they were previously approved. Like, we're not gonna, if they installed a sign that was not approved, obviously we can't reface it.
And you're not adding any signs.
We're not adding any sign.
For this, I'm sorry,
Well,
but for the signs shown on this exhibit, you have the Rite Aid in the oval and then the freestanding letters below. So will all of those, yeah, thank you. Will that entire area be signage?
I believe we would just be using the Rite Aid pharmacy portion of the facade sign. So just the oval shape, not the individual letters.
But it will comply with, what was either previously approved or permitted by the ordinance. And if they installed something that exceeds either of those, we would not be seeking to install that.
I just want the board to, I understand that. I just want the board to have a sense as to, notwithstanding compliance, is the sign proposal an actual reduction of what's on the facade? And I think the answer to that is yes.
Yes.
Because it's just the oval, it's not the freestanding letters, which is 40% reduction, something along those lines, 50% reduction.
Did you say you had a handout of that signage?
I don't have a handout of the interior floor plan as well as the site plan. I just have this sheet,
Okay, not A6,
not A6. No. I believe it was submitted as part of the original application before completeness.
not if it was dated September 18th.
Well, I was just giving it a date so that we could reference it, but it was
I don't think
prepared.
this was part of the.
Yeah.
I believe that was submitted.
So,
Yeah.
I think it was
in there, it's-
for completeness, because we had a comment from, I think, Mr. Clerical's office that said there was no date or indication of who prepared it.
Okay, so let's back up for a second. We're going really fast. We're getting a little confusing here. This that we have on the screen right now, we marked as A7. The exterior prepared by the architect, not sure of the date. We marked as A6, the signage plan dated September 18, 2022, that was prepared by your office.
Yes,
That, do we have a copy of?
just virtual.
Just virtual. Okay,
And I have one large copy that I could hand to you if you like.
okay, well, that, we're definitely gonna need copies of that, for the board and for the file. A5 was the, August 2nd, 2023, deeds partnership sheet, and A4 was the revised, exhibit. Okay, so A6 is what we don't have available for the board other than virtually and.
And I have one large copy.
Sorry.
And
No,
Go
that's,
back and.
for the record, we want to make sure we got it right.
so going back to A7, The intention of A7 is to show what facade changes we would be proposing. It would include removing the peak of the previous Rite Aid, so it would basically have a horizontal feature across the top instead of the peak above the front door. And because what was previously there was on the left side of the door was kind of a back of counter space or back of checkout area, we'd be looking to expand the storefront glazing in that area so that it wouldn't be so imposing. You'd have a little more inviting feeling when you're walking in the front door of the bank. As we're proposing along the Church Street side, along the Route 31 side, which is the image to the right. Again, we're looking at removing the kind of peak feature above where the Rite Aid sign was. And we'd be looking at mimicking the, we'll call it tower portion of the facade that was where the Rite Aid was over the training door as well. So you wouldn't be walking into a door just in kind of a brick wall, nondescript location. There would be some sort of feature that would match the remaining facade of the previous Rite Aid over where the training center door would be. So it would be clearly seen as a second use and not just a random door along a brick wall. So that is the proposed changes that we are looking to make to the facade itself. Again, going back to the plan set that we have here, we are looking at re-tenanting again a previously vacant building with 2 permitted uses that are permitted within this zone, within the HR zone. We are looking at upgrading the site's landscaping, upgrading the site's lighting, working with the board and their professionals to make sure that they meet levels that are acceptable to the municipality. In addition to that, we are looking at, as part of this project, cleaning up, I think, some of the features of the site. Again, anytime you get a chance to get a new tenant in one of these buildings, kind of opens this up to the board for some enhanced maintenance of the property, enhanced maintenance of this condo unit. We are looking again at maintaining all the same levels of access. We are reducing 1 parking space, but not increasing or not creating any type of variance, and looking at cleaning up some of the signage within the site itself. So overall, again, this minor site plan for this re-tenanting, we think is in compliance and with your zoning ordinance, as well as is consistent with your master plan goals for the HR zone.
Mr. Secretary, you reviewed the review letters that were provided in the response to this application, correct?
Yes.
Referring to PB3, we'll start with the engineer September 13th review letter. Was there any comment in there we could not comply with?
No, we could comply with all comments.
I do just want to clarify for comment 7 regarding O&M documentation for the stormwater facilities. The engineer notes it should have been recorded as part of the original site plan. We looked at the prior approvals and did not see that as a condition. However, there is a master deed recorded, which covers the maintenance of common area for the entire property, and we'll work with the board engineer to satisfy that. And with respect to PB1, Ms. McManus's revised review letter, was there anything there we cannot comply with?
No, we can comply with everything.
Okay, in response to PB2, the environmental commission memo, I have 2 comments.
Yeah, again, obviously, this project, we're not looking at changing much of the parking facilities of the site. I think there was a request to reduce the number of parking spaces, but again, we're just looking at mainly re-tenanting and re-landscaping some of the area here. Obviously would be significantly more site work to rip up existing parking spaces as part of this project. Other than that, again, I think there's a benefit when you have projects that reutilize buildings. It does reduce the amount of waste on property. Again, if this was going to be a tear down, rebuild, you'd be talking about construction materials coming out, construction materials coming in, which would be, I would say, a waste, especially from an environmental standpoint. Finding uses like this that could reutilize an existing building, I think, has clear benefits from an environmental standpoint as well.
Thank you.
So usually our practice is for questions from our board's professionals, questions from board members, and then questions from members of the public. So we'll start with, if you could stop sharing so I can see
Oh, yeah.
everybody on the Zoom, it's a little easier. Appreciate that. All right, I'm gonna start with, Beth. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. Thank you. I have a couple questions. For the proposed architecture changes where you're adding the tower, can you tell us what the building material will be?
We're actually removing the tower.
Or the horizontal tower?
Yeah, so it would match the existing materials that are out there today, so, I mean.
You can reshare it now.
Yeah.
So I know it's a little annoying, but. Choice of-
It's harder doing hybrid, just that my computer's easy and just. So it would match the same facade material here. Again, I'm not an architect, so I can't speak to what that is made of, but whatever it's made of, we're gonna look to mimic is.
The board might want to consider submission of architectural plans, perhaps even as a condition of approval, if you're otherwise comfortable with the changes. I just want to ensure that the materials are consistent, colors are consistent, et cetera, and also with the additional window spaces for facing Church Street. For your signage that you're proposing to replace, is that internally illuminated now, and do you propose it to remain so?
It is internally illuminated now, and we look to maintain that at this point.
Okay. And then on the lighting that is proposed, I heard you say that you'll comply with the comments in my memo, and we've recommended a change of LED lighting at the rear, as well as a couple of additional terms for that lighting, including color temperature and full cutoff luminaires. But I think I also may have heard you say that you're proposing to replace the lighting on the site to LED. Is that correct?
Well, I think you stated, that you recommended that all lights be LED, so I said that we would be in agreement with that, we would replace all the lights to LED. And again, we would comply with your recommendations in terms of light color. The one thing we just need to be, careful with is make sure that the lights around the ATM do meet the state statute, which I'm sure we could do with the recommendations you had.
And if you're replacing the lights, does that mean that there are new fixtures required? And do we need to, presumably the lighting levels would change?
The lighting level, well, we could look to mimic the previously approved lighting levels. I'm sure now the light levels have degraded some just due to the age of the equipment out there. So we can look to at least mimic what was previously approved with the new lighting, but we likely would keep the same kind of bases and just basically a lot of these, when you're replacing LEDs, you could just replace basically the top of the fixture as opposed to the full pole.
And to clarify, the replacement light would be on this condo. Correct?
Correct, just this portion, this condo only, not necessarily any of the other private condos involved.
Okay, and at the risk of confusing things, I realized my memo was not quite clear. I was actually recommending that your proposed light fixtures be LED rather than the entire property, or at least the condo portion. But now that the issue is going to open that up to the board. And then the last question I have also on lighting is, in terms of, I asked about hours of operation and potential security lighting, and I asked that question, but I also have a concern about security, and I wonder if it's permitted or wise for you to reduce lighting in overnight for that ATM.
So there are, again, state statutes we need to hit. There are, there's a 10-foot candle requirement that needs to be basically 50 feet or 50 feet outward from the ATM itself at all hours. We have to be careful of dark areas around corners and fences and landscaping and things like that. So again, as much as we could be careful with that, we'd be happy to, find a level that would not be intrusive as it relates to lighting overnight. That said, the adjoining condo to ours is a bank that has ATMs and has similar lighting levels that they would have to meet from the state as well. So again, I don't see that our uses can necessarily, create necessary negative impacts to any of the adjoining condo units.
I don't disagree. Given the fact that you're basically surrounded by commercial uses, I do want to note that the Spice Factory property is just for multifamily, but you're a good distance from there. I'm in favor generally of having the lighting levels reduced, but certainly not below state statute, and not, and thankfully they're there for security purposes. So I'll defer to the board if you'd like to have those lighting levels reduced to the extent possible from a legal perspective. And those are all my questions.
Okay, with engineering questions.
Yeah, just one thing regarding the proposed ADA space. We're gonna need that graded out to demonstrate compliance with the accessibility guidelines.
Absolutely. And yeah, we threw it on just to locate it, but we haven't done the.
Yeah, and where you put it, I don't know that you're gonna be able to do it. You need 5 feet at the door.
We may end up having to flip it, the
Yeah,
ADA and the
to the
hatch.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. That's all I have.
Jay, did you have anything you need to add?
I just had one thing just to keep the record straight on parking count. Either I lost 2 parking spaces when I added everything up, or we're down 2 somewhere. So I just want to make sure instead of going from 109 to 108, we may be going from 107 to 106. I can only find 107. I lost 2 somewhere when I added all the numbers.
I was pulling the number from the previously approved site plan, so it's possible that something got lost in between that site plan and current day. So either way, our requirement is 80, so I know we'll be in compliance, but I do appreciate the record being straight for what the requirement is. What this.
Okay, okay, so just to clarify, I think we're going from 107 to 106. If you add up the numbers on the cover sheet, they add up to 107 right now, and we'd lose 1 off of that.
Anything else, Jay, or are you good?
I'm good, thanks.
So let's go to a question from the board. Let's start with our remote folks, Hannah, Dennis, Jim, Mike. Anybody have any questions? Gotta know.
Yeah, I want to talk about landscaping.
Sure.
So, you said, Mr. Speckler, that, regarding the environmental issues, this is re-landscaping. Are you proposing to cut down any of the trees that are on the site?
No,
You're just proposing to add?
we're just proposing to basically add bushes around the property itself. It seems like a lot of the trees are somewhat mature now that this property's been, I think it's been about 20 years since it was developed. So we're not looking at taking down any trees.
Okay, so it's really, really hard to see on this new map that you gave us where things are going. It looks like the back of the property where you come in off of Route 31 is where all the ornamentals are going, the planter, the viburnum, the hydrangea. Looks like all the ornamentals are going back there. Then it looks like you're adding the hollies. They only get to be about 10 feet tall. I mean, these are shrubs. I don't want people to think they're holly trees. There is a huge difference between the Japanese and a berry holly and a holly tree.
Yes, yes.
Right?
Yes.
So these are shrubs that won't be any ever higher than 10 feet.
Correct.
And then I can't tell at all where you're putting the carpet, the blue rug juniper, which is a carpet. I mean, it's a carpet shrub. People won't see it from the highway. You know, it's very low lying.
So let me share my screen and I'll try to do my best because I know the images are great on there. So as you mentioned, ornamentals generally in the north side of the property near kind of the loading area, do some more screening in that area. We are looking at also some ornamentals. Not selecting anything. I believe we also have
Where are all the holly bushes?
the hollies are basically in the areas between our curb line and the boundary of our condo unit. So these little sets of 3 here, these are all like basically inkberry hollies that are basically flanking existing trees. So you basically have an existing tree and then basically some sets of hollies to provide some more landscape, like headlight screening from the property itself. We do have, as you said, the carpet. Those are located, one up here, which is kind of in a landscape area at the end of one of the parking aisles. We have another one located here. Again, I think there are basically every 8 or so parking spaces. I imagine by ordinance, you guys had a tree landscape type island. So we were looking at basically putting those the carpet in those areas.
So, I mean, they're green, but they really don't do a lot for the environment. And because the junipers are they're so low to the ground. I mean, they're only maybe 6 inches at the most. Is it possible to replace them with something else that will provide a better environmental benefit and also just a visual benefit? something, either another shrub or even, I don't know if you can put trees there.
Well, I think the issue is that they kind of are sitting below, in the same island as there's a tree. So basically, there's an island within the parking lot with a tree in it. We're just trying to green up the bottom of it.
All right.
What's
Which
left
is why
over.
you want the rug.
Yes.
Versus, something else. Okay,
Yeah, and again, working around and within the condo limits, which is not a whole lot of space outside of, the parking aisle. And then we have the existing trees. We gotta be careful of what we can plant, kind of under each
now your
tree.
site actually has a really, for a commercial site in this town.
Yeah.
A mature commercial site, they managed to retain a lot of the trees. None of them are really like big. They never put in like what I would consider good, New Jersey hardwoods, but they are within, I would encourage making sure somebody gets out for them, keeps them that way.
And again, if there is, based on the spacing, the ability to put in a good tree someplace, we obviously would be more than willing to.
Yeah, a maple, like,
Okay.
oak, a hawthorn.
Yeah,
Sugar maples on the site would be spectacular, so.
Again, we'll try to see where we can work in with the existing trees. We don't wanna sacrifice one for the sake of.
No,
another, so,
no, I don't either. It's just a shame that, this is 20 years later and these trees are never gonna get much bigger than they are. And, it could have been quite dazzling had they put something better in. I just don't want you to do the same and, prove it would be great.
Yes.
I get why you're putting in the view, the carpet view. Sorry. So thank you. That was my like question.
Okay, thanks. Questions? I did have a question. Just to be clear, I think I read it on the plans. The ATM is under a canopy, correct?
Yeah, so let me zoom in a little bit more on that area. So previously, the Rite Aid had two drive-through lanes. They basically had a drive-through lane against the building and then a drive-through lane that was kind of against a kind of like a floating median, in which you'd obviously pick up your pharmacy from the one close to the building. If you were dropping off a prescription, you would go on the outer lane. We're basically looking to reutilize those lanes as is, but we're putting an ATM basically in the face of the building, so that won't basically be inset to the building. So if you're on the lane closest to the building, it's basically flush. And then in the kind of little island that existed previously where it used to have a vacuum tube, now we'll have an ATM there as well. And it is there's a.
Therefore, I suppose you would consider any lights installed under there as shown on plans. Be covered, shielded, whatnot. As for the rest of the lighting on the site, there looks like there's various wall packs that are already installed around the rest of the building. It sounded like you were willing to upgrade those or change them?
Yeah, we're willing
Do you
to.
mean by replacing like the fixture itself or simply changing the actual like light source within it?
Well, we agreed that we would make them LED. So as the fixtures, if it's an ability to just swap it out, we will. If not, it'll obviously have to be replaced, especially the wall packs. The freestanding lights, those we likely would just.
Yeah, not the mostly just the wall packs.
Okay.
Do those need to be replaced or simply change the actual,
The location will probably be the same. We'll likely remove it and replace it with a different an LED wall pack. It's like the wall pack.
Do you plan on making those as fully cut off and shielded and whatnot as well?
Sure, yes, we can.
Cool. And thank you.
Susan, your questions?
Yeah, let's talk about the picture. I would like to see, part of the, resolution as, Beth, mentioned. My question is, was there any consideration of upgrading or changing the entire color scheme? Or are you trying to match the color scheme that's there? I'm a little confused as to what your intention was with the material you're looking for is the word ephes is what that is. So is it your intention to keep the same color scheme on all the ephes? Or are you just planning on cutting off the gables, adding a tower, like you're doing the minimum there and adding a storefront?
I would say somewhat of a mix. We are looking at painting the entire ephes white, so we're not gonna have the blue strip anymore along it. So it'll be painted, but in terms of the facade materials, the facade undulations that will be maintained. That was the goal was trying to keep as much of the existing building as possible.
So you're saying that there'll be even less delineation along all the stripes and stuff, there'll be even less delineation than what's there now?
That's our intention, but it sounds like that may be a concern. I'm just getting the tone of the
I'm
question.
asking questions, I'm not saying that. Do you know if the owner is opposed to adding additional tree islands, considering that it was a recommendation of the environmental committee and you have over ample parking?
I guess the question would be how many? We probably can provide
Let's try 7.
7.
I have a plan, but let's try 7.
That's
Again, a question, I need to know whether they're
I
opposed.
think we're open to adding some new vegetated but I don't know if 7 is the number that we'll get to, but I think we are open to.
Okay, so good, that's the answer to my question, is you are open to it, sounds good. And the signs, the signs that are in that photograph, they're not there right now, are they?
They've
They're
been removed.
completely removed,
Yes.
but you're still planning on just putting exactly the same shape and the same font as what was there before?
What I'll say is we'll design it within that shape. So we may not have ovals, but we may be the rectangle that would fit within the oval shape.
And it's your intent to use the same color scheme and
Likely to be a different color scheme. I don't know if the tenant is a blue-white bank or a different color bank.
okay. That's really creative.
All right, so let me ask just a couple more questions that haven't been covered yet. So in terms of signage, to continue that thread, I appreciate the desire to reuse the existing signage and use the ovals and replace it. I'm all for that. My concern is the existing pylon signs have Rite Aid Pharmacy and then the 2 other tenants, Wells Fargo and American Tire underneath it. Your proposal here is for 2 tenants. You've got a financial center, a training center, as well as the bank tenant. Am I correctly in understanding that there is no signage intended for that financial training center?
Correct. That's basically like an internal office for them. That's not going to be an advertised space.
For them, who then?
The bank that would be in the front will be utilizing the back as a training center.
Okay.
Training center.
But there's no door between the 2 tenants, they're
Correct.
separate tenants.
Correct.
Okay, so again, just at some point in the future, were there to be a different tenant in the financial space, and then you now have no signage, how might we handle that?
I think they would have to submit a signage package, maybe in conjunction with the other tenant, and it may require a sign variance.
Okay, but the intention right now is that as proposed, there is no signage for this training center use.
Correct. There's
Just making sure.
Yeah.
Again, it could easily be a situation where they came in, they asked for a sign review, they added another tenant, Wells Fargo and American Tire or something, but that's not at all what's being considered here.
No.
That's fine. The other question was, I had was about, actually, no, Susan asked, never mind, it was about the other stuff. Okay, I'm good. Just making sure there's, Karen.
Just one quick question. I just want to make sure I'm putting this right in here as a condition. So the training center will only be for training of bank-related employees? Or not?
from the financial institution that is working out the front.
Yep.
They will use the back as a training, not necessarily for people that are at this branch. They may be
Correct.
other branches. They could be not related to, personal banking. It could be some other training, but yes.
Or related to the bank that's the main tenant in
Correct.
some way, shape, or form?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other board members with questions?
I have one more. It might be something that the members of the environmental committee can clarify. Item number 5 on the environmental committee. Different one. Okay.
Honestly, we only made it to, we only made it to 2.
I was looking at the wrong one.
All right, never mind.
Forget it. It
All right.
doesn't matter.
Jay, you unmuted yourself.
Sorry.
Yes, Jeff, strike everything I said about the parking numbers. There's one row of spaces on the Spice Factory boundary that's labeled with a 10, but it really has 12 spots in it. So the correct count is 109 down to 108. I apologize.
Then what was the 39/60 numbers that?
Our condo unit
Okay.
has 60
It has
spaces
60 total.
and we require 39.
Okay. Thank you for the clarity.
All right, any members of the public with questions on the testimony given by the engineer and planner? If you could come forward and identify yourself for the record.
My name is Robert Berlant. I'm from Flemington Realty Associates, LLC, where we own the property directly to the north. So I know this is a.
Hold on a second, Kara. Are you an attorney representing the LLC?
No.
Are you here at? Are you asking questions as a member of the LLC in your personal capacity?
Yes.
Provide a little latitude on that proceeding in the interest. However, if it does, typically an LLC must be represented by an attorney. If you are a member, you're here to ask personal questions. If it does start to get into a little more difficult type of situation, we may have to scale back, but let's hear what you have to say on.
No problem. And I will tell you, I'm certainly in favor of the application.
Right. So we're gonna do questions now, and then there'll be a time for a statement. So if you would just questions for the testimony.
Did you just say your name again? Sorry.
Robert Berlant. My address is 2 North Road, Warren, New Jersey. I have been talking to the applicant. When the site plan was originally done, and I know I have to ask it as a question. So the original application, when the Rite Aid or Hector was approved, did show an area for an interconnection so that you didn't have to go out onto Route 31. Are you proposing any interconnection between my property and your property?
Our site plan currently does not show any interconnection between your lot, which is lot 8, and the existing bill.
Would you be willing to, if the board wanted that to occur?
Again,
Well, this board doesn't have the jurisdiction to require that connection. It was not part of the original approval. It was contemplated prior to receiving that approval. And being as there's no access, connecting these would not be necessary for either operation, which has been constructed and operating for about 20 years. This board can't make it a condition of approval, and additionally, require the consent of entities that are not the applicant on this application, including the other condo members and the adjoining lots raised with the current.
That's their answer to your question.
Okay. Okay. The rest I'll then come back to it.
Thank you,
Send
Steve.
the comment.
Okay, no,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you. Other members of the public with questions? Okay, seeing none, we are now actually, is there any other testimony that needs to be given?
Yeah, and further response. Okay, may I speak with my client?
Yeah, we give you a minute. I'm going to briefly pause the recording. Never mind, we're not pausing.
Thank you. Yeah, in further response to Mr. Berland's question, his question was posed as whether the board can require it. However, and as I explained, the board cannot as part of this application, but the applicant is certainly willing to do what they can to explore, creating that access and working with the other parties that would have to be involved in creating it.
Is there any other testimony that you want to give? Do you have any witnesses to call? Do you?
No, we do not.
Okay, so typically then we would allow for public comment at this point, allow you then to provide any closing if we need to, and then we would close the public hearing of the board deliberations. So any members of the public who wish to speak. Now, typically we limit those to 3 minutes. You got 3 minutes. You have to be quick.
And members of the board, he certainly is able to be here as a individual member and pose comments and questions. He has indicated on the property next door, but he's certainly welcome to be here as an individual.
I will tell you, before this site plan was approved, there was an easement, I believe it was in 1998-ish. Bear with me. 1997, there was an interconnection. As this property is interconnected with the Spice Factory, I think the plan was, according to the town, to have interconnections amongst all the properties. When the applicant came in, I believe, 1999, 2000, and proposed the 3 buildings, it was my understanding that they were going to do an interconnection between this property and my property. Interesting enough, the easement document that was recorded in 1997 shows the tax map of this property, but it shows Raritan Township or Raritan Borough, I'm not sure. So it wasn't recorded properly. I was before this board about 14 years ago, trying to get the approval to interconnect. The owner of the Rite Aid, or at that time I think it was Eckerd, the tire store had no problem with the interconnection. The owner of the Wells Fargo, Mr. Hefner, would not consent. The board said if they ever come back before us, we can look at it, and I was under the belief that this was a chance to get that interconnection that was promised with Mr. Silbert back in 2000 when this site plan was done. I do have an exhibit of a proposed interconnection. We could certainly mark it. They did provide it to the applicant. While they're here for the pad site, the owner of the property, there is a condo association with common aisleways. I don't know if they've consented to the application. I don't think they have, because I believe it's a corporation that is not in good standing. Again, I'm in favor of the application. They know. I have the commercial building up front. I have a 2-family house in the back. You may be concerned about the ATM lighting. We're not. There's enough trees in between our property. I don't have any windows facing. I think we're the only residents around. I have no objection. You can leave the lights on all night long at the brighter wattage. But I think now's the chance that we could do the interconnection if the borough wants it. If they don't, then they don't. But I think here's the chance to do that interconnection. The easement document that was recorded in 1997 also had it as this property owners, the heritage, the 3 units, it was supposed to be at their cost and expense. So that's my only complaint on the whole thing. And I think it would be good for everybody. It's a safety thing for you, for access to come back and forth to it. And that's it. But otherwise, you know, I think it's great to get it occupied. I hate seeing a vacant building. I think the improvements they're proposing to it are wonderful. You know, they are doing some site work, that they're putting in a handicapped spot. They may be doing some aisles, they're doing landscaping. At the same time, they can do that interconnection.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Wish to speak? Okay, do you have any closing statement to make? Any sort of closing statement?
Yes, thank you. First, we appreciate Mr. Berland's support and comments with respect to the application, and we're certainly open to doing everything we can to pursue that in the future and work with the other property owners. We just don't see any requirement to make it part of this application before you tonight. What we presented, as Mr. Steckler has discussed, is repurposing a somewhat abandoned and deteriorating site with improved lighting and landscaping and bringing it back to a functional use that will enhance this area of the town. There's no variances or waivers associated with the application. We'll agree with all the conditions represented tonight, including architectural submissions and a signage package submission, and working with the professionals on Mrs. Englehart's comment regarding the landscape guidance. So with that, we're asking for an approval today. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a?
Sure, I want to ask one question. Do you have any comments about the application?
The application was deemed complete.
A completeness on August 22nd. You know what, I'm looking at it right now, not to cut you off, but I see, and, the completeness letter dated August 14, 2023. Have a note, the application will seem complete August 22nd, and it does list the affidavit of ownership is in date July 21, 2023. So, you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. And can I get a motion for the public hearing?
Mayor Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Councilwoman Engelhardt?
Yes.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Johnson? Ms. Weitzman?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
All right, so we move to board discussion. Beth, is there anything you need to say in summary?
In summary, no, I'm not providing comments, but I think that the applicant has addressed the application properly. I do think there are some outstanding items that the board needs to consider. It includes any further direction on architecture and signage, maybe further direction on lighting, in particular, whether or not the board's thinking to have the light fixtures that are existing change to LED, or just simply working with those that are newly proposed to the group.
Is there anything?
I see the issue with the ADA space.
Just the ADA space. Jay, do you have anything else you need for us to consider?
No.
You're working through stuff, but board discussion. Thanks for
And throw out some.
throw out some
additions.
stuff.
All right.
So some are just gonna be references to clarify the record, so you want to kind of fast in a couple places, but one, reduction in parking from 109 to 108 based upon the exhibit that was provided to the board. As Beth indicated, the applicant has agreed to work with the board professionals to address all items in our comment letters with regard to lighting and landscaping. Question with regard to lighting, should the existing and proposed fixtures be replaced with LEDs? Shielding and cutoff issues should be addressed. Also, Mayor Carroll had a comment with regard to the incorporation of, find some language, some more mature, larger landscaping, and some of those.
deciduous trees, native deciduous trees, or sugar maple, some deciduous trees that will grow to a larger size. By better environment.
All comments again, the board professionals will be complied with regarding lighting, landscaping. The lighting with regard to the ATM must meet ADA standards, but the board can consider whether or not they want to require that it be reduced to the minimum extent permitted by law. Training shall only be for bank employees, not necessarily on site, but definitely related to the bank tenant. The signage proposed will be what is previously approved or what is permitted by ordinance. In connection with that, the applicant should provide a copy of the resolution that was previously approved with regard to the signage for the prior for the writing.
Sorry, I think that the signage on the facade will be reduced to just the area consisting of the old sign, not the freestanding letters.
I had that.
I'm sorry.
Yep, okay. I'll tie those two together. Yeah, I had, just the oval on the right hand side of the facade shall be installed as depicted in A7. There's no signage proposed for the training center use. We need copies of A3, A5, A6, A7 for the board, copies of A4, which is the second exhibit we're providing. Again, the applicant agreed to comply with all comments in the review letters. However, there was a comment that with regard to item 7 of PP3, which is the board engineer's letter, that there was a master deed that was recorded to satisfy that requirement. I would suggest that the board require that a copy of that master deed be provided. The applicant shall provide information with regard to the materials of the new architectural details, which will match the existing ethos. And the board can decide whether they want to have architectural plans submitted depicting the consistent materials and the colors. The applicant has indicated they will paint the existing ethos but keep the actual material intact. Signs will continue to be internally illuminated as approved. The applicant will properly grade the ADA space and will work with the board engineer to ensure that that takes place. There was a comment with regard to the addition of more vegetative islands. Councilwoman Engelhardt recommended possibly 7. Certainly the applicant can work with the board professionals with regard to that. And I have a note that all prior conditions of the prior resolution shall be satisfied. I don't know what they are. If you haven't seen a copy, but that's typically a general comment in connection with any subsequent approval.
Okay, so let's turn to discussion. I want to make sure we get the remote folks. Anna, Dennis, Jim, Mike, any of you have comments to share?
No, I think the list of conditions was very inclusive.
I don't either, other than we don't have to address that interconnection discussion. I was unclear on that, but other than that, I'm fine.
I mean, it is a stated goal of the borough's master plan for a very, very long time to interconnect parking lots. So that is an accurate depiction of what our policy goal would be. Let's put it that way.
Specifically that kind of
This kind of
area.
internal circulation.
Before.
But I maybe Perry, you can shed some light here because of the situation of ownership of 3 conduit units plus this essentially it's not an HOA, but it's a condo association that has the common spaces. Can you give us? I mean, is the representation made by the applicant's counsel accurate, that this is not, that they do not have the authority to negotiate that, but it's the condo association that is the entity that is responsible? How does that work?
Well, that would seem to be the case, looking at it that way. There's a condo association that is the owner of property with each one of these individual tenancies that have the ability to make application for the board, then that would be correct. Not seeing the easement or the language of the easement, I don't know if there's anything in there that says otherwise. I would also note, though, that only this one lot is the subject of this application. In order for the board to impose, not necessarily that you should or could at this point, but we need to incorporate the adjacent property into this application, which then creates the need for new notice, and all that. So I do not also know that there was a condition on the prior approval requiring the continued existence of this easement. But I will say that that is not being proposed to the board right now.
And regardless of the exact location of the easement, it would, as I'm looking at the depiction of the site plan, it would be in the space that is not the condo area of the applicant. It would be in the area north of that condo area up to the property line, right? So it's beyond what is in front of us. Maybe way to put it.
Yes, I see what you, so I'm looking at the 24-foot easement for ingress and egress in that location. It is outside of the condo area that is the subject of this.
Dennis, did that kind of answer your question there?
It does. I'm good. Thank you.
Hannah, Mike, do you have anything?
I'm good. Not for me.
Thanks, Mike. Hannah?
No, I'm fine with everything. I do think, maybe taking away some of the parking spaces that seem quite, it seems like there's quite a lot there, and adding green space would definitely be a benefit. Especially after we had that one talk on, or just the discussion of, parking spaces and how these days there's too many, and there's like maybe a new equation about, I'm not sure, but yeah, definitely adding some more green space would be appreciated.
Well, I guess I want to ask Susan, Ms. Engelhardt, why 7?
I
have that number, why 7?
Just looking at it from a site plan,
Yeah.
I counted 7 little areas between the existing tree islands right now. And we've got 21 extra spots, 60 minus 39. And then I looked at the site plan and I picked this really far one, this really far one, and one here and one here and one more there. So I counted
7.
that I could, from a planning standpoint, that I was redesigning for the, redesigning for the client. We're not supposed to do that.
I support the environmental commission's,
yeah, I think that
the spaces when good deciduous trees like sugarman.
Well, I think that the heat island effect is really important. And just the last couple of weeks with all of the heat, I was walking somewhere and then I walked in the shade. I was like, it felt much better. So I would encourage as many we've got a lot to work with here. So let's take the opportunity and try to get rid of some of the heat island effect. This parking lot is going to be cleaned up. It's going to look great. I think the applicant's gonna do a good job, and they have an opportunity to reduce their impervious coverage as well. So that's where I got that number from. Because I just looked at the site plan and used my own kind of professional judgment, but that's certainly negotiable.
So the environmental commission and the shade tree commission are going to start working on looking at all of the current administrative code. I think there's four chapters that deal with replacement of trees, and DEP is also putting forward a new tree requirement, which I don't know what they're going to do, but the two commissions are going to be starting to review that hopefully soon. The chairs are going to get together hopefully this weekend. And, so this heat island effect is legit. Flemington Borough is 7 to 10 degrees warmer than, 1 mile outside of our borders. So I would definitely support the removal of some of the parking spaces and adding some new deciduous trees and some islands to calm down the heat. I also support, as a condition of the resolution, seeing the architectural ahead of time. And I also support the idea of bringing some of the LED, changing it all to LED because that's better environmentally. They're gonna have to do it anyway at some point because that's the way things are going in the state of New Jersey. But I am concerned about safety. This is a bank, it's got an ATM. So I don't mind having some brighter, some brighter lights in certain areas, but I would also support in some of the other areas having it a little bit more dim because we don't need to burn the electric. But it's a bank with an ATM, it needs to be safe.
Susan, do you have other comments more than we?
Yeah, besides redesigning for civil engineers, I'm sorry, it's a habit. But I will say that, this existing site plan has those floating islands where the stormwater runs behind them. So I expect you probably would be able to do something very similar to that. I wanna mention that, because I think a lot of people don't quite necessarily understand why there would necessarily be a bank next to a bank. And I wanna mention that I think this use is a little different in that it's something that we actually touched upon in our master plan in that kind of attracting kind of corporate headquarters, which this kind of is acting as in a similar way. So I'm happy with that. It is a really visible site in town. It's at one of the main entrances, so I really want to see the site clean up and look nice and bright and shiny. So I think the architectural is important. The interconnection, I didn't quite understand whether we were talking pedestrian, vehicular, or both. Either way, I know that only a few years after the neighbor mentioned the 1997 application, in 2000, we specifically talked about encouraging pedestrian cross access within these parcels of the site. So I don't know if we're permitted to put a non-binding suggestion in the resolution for the owner to encourage that within their site without having it be binding. I don't know, like to at least go on record that, hey, we encourage this in the future, just like the last couple applications we have. I think we at least touched upon it. I don't know if we can do that or not.
It said the applicant has represented that it is willing to.
Yeah,
I
but it's
would,
not
I don't
expired.
think it's, I don't think it goes in as a condition. I think it goes
Yes.
into the statement of the testimony given. I
That's
think that's the space for it.
I just don't want, I think it's, look, we've been talking about it for 20 years and it looks like, people aren't forgetting it, which is a good thing. Whether, sooner or later it'll get incorporated. That's all I got.
Yeah, just about the lighting, I suppose, with the one condition. I think they depicted on the plans that one pre-existing light that is similar to all the Spice Factory ones. I don't think we were intending on having them replace just that one individual light with the LED. Because then it kind of look weird with the rest of the adjoining ones. But I did want to make sure that they did replace all the wall packs on the building itself and everything else with LEDs, full cut off, that kind of thing. And trust you'll review it and look it over.
Yeah, our board requires that. I want to make sure we have a condition for a lighting. They have the one, so we can just be a lighting plan in addition to what was in the picture. Yeah, if the board is going to require that the existing light fixtures be changed to LED, I think that they should be required to submit a new lighting plan that depicts the new proposed lighting methods.
But I did want to make sure, I don't think, well, maybe, I don't know, that one individual light that is not going to be replaced, it's not attached to the building. It's shared with the rest of the condos in there and Spice Factory as well. I don't think is LED. And I don't think with the last application that we were going to mandate that.
We did not. We with them, we allowed them to keep their existing fixtures because they were architecturally significant relative to the design of the site.
And I think these match those. I don't think we want to mandate that they've replaced the one light with an LED. Right?
I hear what you're saying.
Other than that, I did notice one strange thing. I think it's our attention. Both ways?
Oh, yeah, so you've got in and out arrows on one of your sets of plans, but not all of the sets of plans. And the existing painting is 2 lanes inbound off of 30 Route 1 southbound.
You're not looking.
You're not allowed to
Yeah,
change
that's why
anything.
it's dangerous.
Yeah, we don't want anybody going out over there, yeah.
We can just open up the driveway though, because then they
There
can go
you
further down, where there's more distance.
So I'll.
Wait, so what, I wanna make that clear.
You
This
know,
plan has to be
one of
revised,
the plans shows bi-directional arrows on the drive off of 31
On C1.
on C1, but everything else, including the aerials, show 2 lanes into the site and nothing outbound. We want to, they're not proposing to change it. So
Okay.
it's a misprint on
So
one of
that's
the
just the
pages.
inbound, that's just the
But
ingress.
ingress only, not egress. So I'll just say that I'm happy to see that the site's being redeveloped. I'm happy to see someone coming in with a good innovative plan. I'm happy to see that it's not gonna be yet again Halloween experience or whatever temporary tenants come in. I'm sorry. I'm actually, this is all good. This is all good stuff. And I think that, I agree that to the extent possible, I don't know if I would want to say 7 planting island. I would say that to the satisfaction of the board's professional to add additional planting islands with native species, deciduous trees, as well as other ground cover shrubs, as appropriate to the satisfaction of the board's professionals is probably adequate. Because I would hate for them to have 7 in the resolution and then for us to figure out 6 and then them have to come back. But I think that the intention is clear from, we want to try to get as many in as possible.
I see a minimum of 4, I see a minimum of 4 available, and the other 3, we can negotiate.
So how
Yeah.
Carol wants that to be enforceable and reflect the will of the board. I don't know, but that's kind of where my head is on that. I think that Trent's comments about the lighting are accurate. I think that we can, the applicant has testified that they're willing to replace everything, and I think that we can say as many as possible, submit the revised plan to the approval of the board's professionals, recognizing that. Again, I don't want us to say as a condition that they're gonna replace everything.
You don't want
As it turns out, there's one that we shouldn't be replacing. I wanna make sure that they, in general, most of it, if not all of it, that kind of thing.
And that is only in their own condo.
In their own condo unit, and the wall packs for sure, because I think that's an easier thing, but the parking lot lighting is probably, in my mind, less. Those are the spaces where we run into problems about replacement of LEDs and impacting foot candles and safety issues and things like that. I'm less concerned about the lighting. Mayor was saying that it's on 31. Yes, there's residential, but it's well screened. It is a bank. There are safety issues that we have to be concerned about, and it's not just overnight hours. It's 5 p.m. on a December evening. So I think that we want to make sure that there's adequate safety there for everybody who's using the tower there. So, and I like repurposing the drive. It's a good thing to be able to figure out a way to do that. So, is there anybody else who has any other comments? Okay, so
What about the architect's tools? Are we gonna require them to be looked at?
I think that's gonna be a condition.
condition to the satisfaction of the voice profession.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think the applicant might have heard the comments regarding the, including some additional color, maybe not additional, but retaining some of those color differences and stuff.
I think they heard us. Yes.
Paint is cheap.
Paint is cheap. That's.
Put that?
Put that
Sure.
there.
Paint is cheap. Go for it.
And what we are looking for is a motion to grant minor site plan approval subject to the conditions that Kara has laid out and we've been talking about.
Next, one other question.
Please.
This is a more intense use, I think, than what was there with Rite Aid. Rite Aid had a few employees, pharmacists, and some customers, that came in and out. And this, with the training center, I don't know how many bodies we're talking about. What do we do about sewer water requirements for the site?
In Bob's letter, he had, he had raised the issue that
They're definitely gonna have to submit, applications to the sewer and water department. Yeah.
They are, okay, so I'll make this on record. That's fine.
Any other questions? Okay, so is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Mayor Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Levitt,
Yes.
Councilwoman Engelhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Campion,
Yes.
Joshua,
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we leave the flash drive or?
No, you take your flash drive, and email all of this.
Do you have copies right now of the exhibits or you can? Thank you.
If it's, I know we normally take a break at 9, but if we could just take a 5-minute break right here as, we're switching to the next application.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we're gonna come back. Thank you for the short break. I think you please recall the roll.
Mayor Carroll,
Yes.
here, Councilwoman Engelhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Campion,
Here.
Joshua,
Here.
Mr. Levitt,
Here.
Ms. Weitzman,
Here.
Mr. Hill, I don't see it. Mr. Show. Ms. Kaczynski, here. Mr. Klein, Mr. Hill.
Here.
Ms. McManus and Mr. Troutman are excused.
Excused.
We go back to board member Hill.
Jim Hill. Aging Jim Hill.
Want to text him or?
With this number.
I think it's not.
Either you should come now or.
Jim. Like Bill Cosby, Noah.
Right.
Noah.
Oh my God, my father made me listen to all of them. You know, every single one of those.
Those one I like Bill Cosby.
Yeah, exactly. That's why everybody loves.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think he tried to pick up and then it hung up, so maybe he.
Oh, here you go.
There we go.
Hey, thank you.
It worked, yay.
Jim, thank you.
Sorry, dog walking.
All right. All right, so item 7 on our agenda this evening is the continuation of the public hearing for Douglas Stryker application 2023-02, block 35, lot 60. 13 Brown Street, continued from July 11th, August 8th, and September 12th, 2023. This is a variance application, or maybe, is it? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, there's still a variance out.
And I just want to note for the record, while there was re-notification, correct? That was done with regard to this one or no?
No.
Okay. But this did originally start out as a D variance application. It is no longer a D variance, so the class 1 and class 3 members can participate. However, there was no testimony that was previously provided to the board, so there is nothing that you need to listen to. So everyone that is here tonight.
I think, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Stephen Gruenberg, on behalf of the applicant, Douglas Stryker. When we filed this application, we were seeking a 2-family home on a undersized lot. And that would require a D5 density variance. In reviewing your professionals' reports and reviewing concerns raised by the Environmental Commission and others, we decided to go back to the drawing board and convert this back to a single-family home, which is a conforming use. We no longer need the variance relief. And we presented a updated variance plan. And the only variance that we require is not for anything that we're doing on the lot, it's that the lot is undersized. So we don't need any setback variances. We don't need an impervious coverage variance. The only thing that we need is a lot C variance for a lot variance where the lot size is 7,913 square feet, where 9,000 square feet is required. I provided the board with my response to Mr. Clerico's September 13th, 2023 correspondence. I sent a letter the next day, September 14th, 2023, addressing some of those issues that he raised in his report. Chiefly, the one that I just bring to the board's attention now was that we don't need a V variance relief anymore. And also with respect to the impervious coverage, the whole issue of whether you reduce the impervious coverage by 20% doesn't apply because we're a single family home. That only applies to multifamily and commercial. So, great, agreed. So I will just present Mr. Rootnarain this evening to run the plan over to the board and address Mr. Clerico's remaining comments in Mr. Clerico's correspondence.
Okay, so before we start, we'll mark as exhibit A1, the application, no supporting documentation. We will mark A2, the notice and publication. We will mark as PB1, the September 18, 20, we'll mark September 18, 2023 letter of Remington Burning Engineers, specifically Mr. Jones, the board's planner in this matter. We will mark as PB2, April 29, 2023 letter from Van Cleef Engineering. And one more, which is we have PB3, which is Van Cleef Engineering's secondary review letter dated September 13th. And we also have the memorandum of the Flemington Historic Preservation Committee, which is marked as PB4, that was dated May 25th, 2023, revised to July 15th. Am I missing one?
There was also an email from the
Yes.
Historic Preservation Commission indicating they had no further comments.
Yep.
I think essentially happy with our.
Yes. Okay, that is the email again from Richard Giffen, Chair of the Flemington Historic Preservation Commission, dated September 11, 2023, and that was PP. Sorry, PP5.
The Root Marine has previously testified before this board and we offered it as an expert engineer. The license is still in. Yes, it is.
Any objections, Mr. Moran? Is that professional engineer?
Eric, why don't you take the board through our.
Do we need to swear him in?
I'm sorry, that would be helpful.
He's going to testify you're about to give this board the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but.
Yes, I do.
We tilt the computer just so we can get both of you in there. There you go. Thank you.
Eric, why don't you take the board through the plan that we submitted, dated September 7th, 2023.
Are you going to be sharing your screen?
Yes.
Excuse me, Jeff, I cannot hear Steve.
I'll make sure he gets the microphone.
I'm sorry. For the share screen.
Big green button in the middle, center bottom.
Okay. No, it doesn't do that.
No, we don't have that. We count on a budget.
Understand. Move this.
No, that's fine.
the uses. Closer. There it is. So this is the plan that was submitted, and it's last revised September 8th of this year, 2023. And what the applicant is proposing is a 3-bedroom, 2-story home to be constructed on the western side of Brown Street. The proposed driveway will be located on the southerly side of the proposed dwelling, and there's a 2-car garage that's proposed as part of the dwelling, and access to the garage will be from the rear of the dwelling. The area directly behind the garage will be approximately 25 feet wide, and it's not ideal in terms of being able to turn and drive into the garage in one movement. However, it does work if the applicant or anyone that wants to park in the garage, if they pull forward towards the garage, they can back out and then pull straight into the garage. So we do feel that in terms of access to the garage and circulation at the back of the applicant's proposal is more than adequate to provide access. One of the comments that Mr. Perko had in his letter was relative to access from the driveway to front of the dwelling. And what the applicant has done is to revise the plan. And I do yes. That. This was not supplied, so we want to mark this.
That a three. You can have, do you have any paper copies?
Yes, we did. The same plan. With the last revision date of September 15th, 2023. Essentially, the only difference between the previous plan and we're looking at the current one, which is revised through September 15th, 2023, is that at the front of the dwelling, approximately here.
Excuse me, I'm still having a hard time hearing Eric.
Okay. Thank you. At the front of the dwelling, at approximately here, there's going to be a
I can't, when you say here, I can't see.
To the right of the stairs.
Where it says proposed wall?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So that is the walkway that the applicant is proposing to connect the driveway to the front steps of the house. The change that was made still complies with the maximum impervious coverage for the property. It doesn't create any additional variance. Essentially, that is the applicant's proposal for tonight.
But in doing that change to the sidewalk, we also reduced the width of the porch, correct?
Correct.
So there's no increase in the impervious coverage that would require us to have any variance relief?
Correct.
The walk's 2 feet wide?
2.4 feet.
That's essentially our proposal.
Okay, so we'll go with questions. So we'll start with the engineer. Make sure that you're onto the mic. Yeah.
Yeah, primarily, Eric did address the comments we had. You know, there was definitely a concern about the ability of a car to navigate the rear of the property and either back into the garage or back out of the garage and turn around. Now the driveway stem from the street it's not dimensioned. Is that like 9 feet wide, 9.5? The scale still looks like. It scales to somewhat less than 10 feet, so whether it's 9.5, 9.4, I don't know, but it should,
9.5 feet.
it should be dimensioned.
Certainly, you can.
And if you could just kind of present an exhibit that shows a passenger vehicle SUV or whatever coming down the driveway.
And turning into the back.
Making a K-turn or whatever and backing into the garage.
No, we can certainly do that as any future plans and visuals.
Any other questions?
Just the fact that, you know, they're gonna need to apply for water and sewer connections and that should be made efficiently through.
Okay. Any questions? You also have questions.
Just checking because I wanted to be audible for once. First off, thanks for the revisions, taking the severity of the relief that's being requested down from the D variance to the C variance. And only one of those, though. I guess the short version is what type of C variance are you asking for or requesting on this application?
It would be a C1 variance, based upon the existing shape and size of the lot and for the lot area of being 7,900 and something square feet or 9,000. We can't comply. We can't get any additional property in order to comply.
That was my next question. If you had done due diligence, we'll see if any of the neighbors or adjacent property owners will be willing to provide.
And
we can't get in.
But you can plainly see that everything is so tight there, where are you gonna get it from?
yeah, all of our lots in that area are so small that there wasn't really an ability to approach other people and say, can we get more property?
So the position is the neighboring lots are also undersized, so they could not help your client out without putting themselves in a circumstance.
Correct. Or such a smaller size that they wouldn't be something people would be interested in.
I'm glad to see that the latest revision is interestingly enough, the new revision is matches the architectural elevation closer to the previous vision already was, because the old architecturals and the old plan, the steps were the entire width, are almost entire width of the front of the house, and the architecturals were much narrower. I guess what I would request is just make sure when we forward any documents, those are coordinated together, and since all I've received are PDF versions, we can put in comments about signed and sealed. I'm sure that's not a problem.
Certainly.
The hardship in conformity. We do also say that this lot size is characteristic.
Yes. Correct. And otherwise, if this wouldn't be permitted, you would have essentially a vacant lot. Because there would be no other type of use that would be able to be done other than a single family residential residence on the existing lot, the existing neighborhood.
Aaron, do you have any questions?
Just one clarification, so I've got two measurements for the existing lot, proposed lot, I've got the 7,913, and I've got the 6,662. I think it's the 79, right?
I haven't seen that.
It's
on
on
the
table.
the table.
Yeah.
Oh.
So then I think that carried over into the planning report.
That's a gross between that size, which.
When you say gross versus net, what's the difference?
Well, on the left side of the variance plan, there's a lot 60 gross, 7913 square feet, and net 6662 square feet.
Yeah,
The property line.
And that is the gross minus the right of way.
Correct.
Because the right of way on Brown Street's at the center line of the road. and-
Right.
Correct.
But the lot size is what
Gotcha.
varies.
Yep, yep, yep.
Okay. So, and they want to put it in as a condition to revise that plan. That's all I have.
Okay. Would you mind stop sharing for just a second so that I can see? Sure. Maybe our remote board members have questions. So, Dennis is saying no, Hannah, no, I got a no, Jim.
No.
Mike, do you have any questions?
I'm good, Jeff.
All right, Susan, you have any questions?
No questions.
Sure.
Yeah, it's kind of a dumb question. Just, I'm not a guy that reads plans, so those dashed lines, those are what's existing, right? And all the solid lines on the plans are what you're proposing, right?
So the dashed line actually on the left-hand side of the property represents the limits of the proposed driveway.
Okay.
And there's also an existing gravel area that's represented by the dashed line in front of the building.
Which dash line are you talking about?
Yeah, there's a lot.
All of them, I guess.
I'll help you. This is the driveway.
Okay.
This paved area and then along the south side of the building. And their testimony was, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the garage access would come around the back.
Correct.
And it extends to here.
Correct.
Yeah. And the dash line with the long bar and then the two little ones, that's the building envelope.
That's all. That's it. Thank you.
I have one question. Is there a tree or a bush?
It's not a site, plan, it's a
Well,
variance plan.
Okay, is there a tree or a bush on this property once it's built?
Well, there'll be landscaping, but it's not a site plan.
But you're not showing anything on.
Right, because
Okay.
it's not technically a site plan like you would have for a commercial
But there
development.
is plans, the applicant's denying the fact that there is plans. on the landscape.
Yeah, Oki wants to have a beautiful house with landscaping there.
I think my drawing of the house, the picture of the house.
Yes.
So that like the architect thing.
He's got
That's
more
more
in.
than, so.
It's not, let's not get.
It's every intention.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. Any members of the public with questions? I don't have anybody on Zoom and there's nobody in the room. So I think we can move forward. All right. Do you have any other witnesses?
I do not.
Are there any members of the public who wish to make a statement? Seeing none. I don't know what that was.
Got everybody's attention.
All right, seeing none, is there any closing statement that you wish to make?
You know what, please approve this. Stellar's closing statement.
All right. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Mayor Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Levitt,
Yes.
Councilwoman Engelhardt.
Yes.
Mr. Campion,
Yes.
Dashna.
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman,
Yes.
no,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so is there anything from our board's professionals that engineering or planning wise that you feel that they need to? No. Tara, can you run through what would the board consider?
Besides our typical conditions, satisfaction of the comments within the review letter and the board's professionals, stormwater management facilities, these are, I believe, in the board engineer's report, that stormwater management facilities to be designed with satisfaction of the board engineer.
No, that's not, yeah, that's one of the things that was, that we use.
Single family house.
Now, I know that we didn't have to comply with the. That's right, okay, not comply with 30%, 50%, so that's a impervious coverage, however, shall not exceed 50%, because then that would require a variance from the board. I believe one of the comments of the board engineer was a as-built, just so they can indicate that that does not exceed 50%. Plan shall be revised to reflect the lot size, total gross lot size of 7,913 square feet. The applicant has landscape.
There's also dimensioning the driveway was on there. I guess that's.
Well, no, that was just a comment I had that wasn't actually in the report.
Okay.
Keep that out.
All right, so discussion amongst the board. Anybody have anything they would like to say?
I just wanted to comment that for a very thin site, architecturally, the design works very well with the access of the driveway in the back. And I commend the designer for doing the work on this job.
Yeah, Dennis, go
It's
ahead.
not easy to do.
I would just add, really appreciate that the applicant addressed the HPC concerns. The design, as Susan said, really fits in with that area. So really appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Say it does seem to be, like he said, kind of in line with the rest of the lots that are on the street, basically, that's on there. I think the house itself looks good. It fits in with the rest of the neighborhood.
Anybody else? I'll just say, echoing what everyone said, I don't, not with the 200 feet, I'm well beyond the distance, but it's in my end of town, and I'm happy to see, as Trenton said, finally this vacant lot getting some attention and seeing a nice design come through. So thank you for taking the time to revise based on our comments and our HPC and everybody else. It's appreciated. Can I get a notion? What we are approving is really just the C variance, the C1 variance, which is, as Kara said before, because of the undersized lot, and no other relief is being sought.
I'll move.
Jim Hill moves. Do I have a second?
Engelhardt seconds.
Engelhardt seconds. Any further discussion?
Hill.
Yes.
Councilwoman Engelhardt.
Yeah.
Mayor Carroll.
Yes.
Mr. Campion.
Yes.
Mr. Dashna.
Yes.
Mr. Levitt.
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman.
Yes.
Go. Yes.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
All right, now. My architect changed that house design 7 times.
All right, item 8 on our agenda this evening, chair items. Our next meeting is October 3rd, 2023. Just to make sure everyone remembers that. We have a few things on the agenda. Hopefully we'll have the resolution for Spice Factory. We'll have public hearings for Central Station LLC. That's also Perkins, if you know it that way. And those are the 2 things on the agenda, right?
Currently, yes.
Currently, okay. The meeting after that is on the
October 24th,
right,
and that we have Wartsville Road Properties
right,
continuation.
Do it
They haven't started any testimony.
right, and we have a did we not get a completeness for
For less
wellness, right?
wellness.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Or
Or
is
site
that
plan.
for completeness.
24 to completeness.
Where is that location? I forgot.
That's by 25 Burgers.
Oh, right, I knew that. Thank you. Any other chair items?
We do have, there's been a couple of inquiries. So we might have a couple of other applications that are coming up, so, but nothing's been submitted yet, just a few inquiries of, uses, they went to zoning and now they have to come back to courts.
Okay. All right, item 9, can I get a motion to pay the bills? Audit the bills, sorry.
Engelhardt moves.
Second.
I'm sorry, were the only those that we got the ones from Cleveland?
Yes.
Okay.
It's only 1 week.
That's okay.
Right, it was only 1 week. We had a fairly large bills list last time, but yeah.
That's supposed to be like a bill. That's. Okay.
Sorry, audit the bill. Yes, we'll do that one. All right, we have a motion in a second.
Mrs. Councilwoman Engelhardt.
Yes.
Mr. Levitt.
Yes.
Mayor Carroll.
Yes.
Mr. Campion.
Yes.
Dashna.
Yes.
Mr. Levitt, once more. Ms. Weitzman.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Sorry. All right, yes.
Thank you. Professional reports, Beth said she didn't have one, before she took off, and I don't think Jay had one before he left. There's nothing from engineering, nothing from our conflict planner. Karen, do you have anything?
At the end of the last meeting, the board directed me to write a letter to general counsel of Catalyst with regard to the status of the living wall. I did that, not get a response yet, but it's only been a week. So I'll follow up before the next meeting and hopefully have some.
Thank you. All right, any need to go into executive session? Nope. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
James, you know when we started back up again? Right.
8:39.